10 years ago, Imara's husband, Darius, vanished without a trace, leaving her in a galaxy brimming with dangerous secrets and interstellar conflicts. In his absence, Imara pieced together a life, scarred by loss, yet resilient. However, her reality shatters when she stumbles upon rumors of a renowned elusive mercenary known only as the Shade. As whispers swirl about the Shade's ruthlessness and skill, Imara feels an impossible familiarity in every tale. Driven by an unquenchable need to uncover the truth, she embarks on a perilous journey across the galaxy, diving into a world darker than she could have ever imagined. As she follows this cold trail, she confronts deadly assassins, rogue AI, and alien conspiracies, only to finally face a mercenary whose identity defies every belief she held dear. They say the mercenary known as the Shade doesn't leave witnesses. Imara clutched the tattered, hollow image of her husband, eyes fixed on the stoic yet familiar figure standing on the surveillance feed. It was a face she thought she'd never see again, a face she'd wept over, raged over, and finally accepted as gone forever. But there he was, 10 years older, colder, and deadlier. She watched, breathless, as he dispatched guards with a quiet efficiency that was almost otherworldly. He was a phantom, slipping through shadows with deadly precision. "Darius," she whispered, her voice shaking. The Shade's eyes glinted through the screen, two pits of steel devoid of the warmth they once held. Yet something stirred in her, an undeniable conviction. "That's my husband." A week earlier, Imara would have said she had made her peace with Darius's absence. She'd spent years mourning, and slowly over a decade she'd started to move forward. But a lifetime ago, she and Darius had been inseparable, each the other's heartbeat, even as he joined a fledgling security team for an experimental lunar colony. When the final transmission from his team went dark, she had pleaded with every channel she could find. The answer had always been the same. Darius's unit was lost in action. Then, a chance encounter at a seedy spaceport changed everything. She'd overheard a story about the Shade, a myth in mercenary circles, a man who fought with unmatched prowess, one eye covered by a deep scar, his reputation built on survival in impossible odds. A scar, she thought, recalling the last image she had of Darius, his smooth skin unmarred. Still, the description nagged at her. When she found the surveillance footage of the Shade's recent raid, her instincts flared. It couldn't be anyone but Darius. Against every rational thought, Imara packed a small bag and booked passage on the next ship to Antares Station, a hub for information brokers and ex-military operatives. If there were any truth to her suspicions, this was the place to start. Antares Station was chaos. Its halls echoed with the chatter of smugglers, traders, and mercenaries exchanging secrets for credits. Imara kept her head down, her nerves sharp with the fear of being followed. Her inquiries about the Shade yielded little. Most mercenaries looked at her as if she were mad. Then, one woman, lean and hard-eyed, paused, her gaze narrowing. "You're braver than most to even speak his name. The Shade's loyalty is bought by the highest bidder, and they say he'd sooner put a knife in your back than talk to you." The woman leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "If you really want to find him, try Lycan's graveyard." The words chilled Imara to her core. Lycan's graveyard was an asteroid belt where only the dead and the deranged ventured, a place rumored to be haunted by those who had long abandoned their humanity. But fear wouldn't stop her. The next morning, she boarded a shuttle, setting course for Lycan's graveyard. The journey to Lycan's graveyard was as grueling as it was lonely. Imara was no stranger to dark corners of the galaxy, but this asteroid field was different. Cold, silent, and littered with wreckage from decades of failed ventures. The small transport ship she'd boarded was equipped with basic shielding, but even the pilot, a grizzled former Marine, seemed reluctant to venture far beyond the edge. "Only a mad woman would want to go all the way in," he muttered, eyeing her as if she were one of the phantoms that haunted these rocks. "I need to find someone," she replied. Her hands tightened around the straps of her seat as she stared out the viewport, determined. The pilot grunted but didn't argue. He'd probably seen stranger things in his career. Hours passed before they reached the coordinates. The ship's instruments struggled to pick up any signals amidst the asteroid's dense electromagnetic interference. At last, a faint blip appeared on the scanner, a derelict station, barely functional and hidden deep within the graveyard. "I'll give you 12 hours, the pilot said, His tone softened with a hint of warning. "Any longer, and you're on your own." She nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Alone wasn't unfamiliar territory. She'd lived there for the last 10 years. The air inside the station was thick with the scent of oil and metal, tinged with the metallic bite of old blood. Amara's footsteps echoed in the abandoned corridors, shadows flickering from her handheld light. The station felt like it had been forgotten by time itself, another ghost lost in the void. Finally, a figure appeared at the end of the corridor, moving with calculated precision. She felt a rush of adrenaline as she gripped her weapon, heart pounding. The figure stopped, and her light caught the unmistakable scar that crossed his eye, a sight that sent a chill straight to her core. Darius, it was him. Her Darius, yet not him at all. This man was harder, colder, his gaze hollow. She called his name, her voice barely a whisper, and for a heartbeat she saw a flicker of recognition. But the warmth she remembered was replaced by something else, steel and survival. "Emira?" His voice was a whisper, as if he were trying to place her. "How?" He shook his head, the faintest hint of something, regret, pain, flickering in his expression before it vanished. "You left Darius," she said, her voice filled with years of heartache and unanswered questions. 10 years, and you just disappeared. "I didn't have a choice." He looked away, his jaw tense. "The man I was, he's dead, Amara. I'm not who you remember." "But I remember," she replied, stepping closer, searching his face. "And I know you're still in there." He turned away, hiding his face in shadow. "Amara, leave. There are things you don't understand, things I can't let you get involved with." But she didn't back down. "Not now. Then make me understand." Reluctantly, he led her deeper into the station, where an abandoned cargo hold had been converted into a living space. There, amidst a haphazard arrangement of salvaged supplies and makeshift quarters, he began to explain. "After the incident on Lunar 5, our team was captured," he said, his voice hollow. "They experimented on us. My memories are hazy, fragments of pain and reprogramming. By the time they were done, I was the Shade, a weapon more than a man." Amara felt her stomach twist at the horror of it. She reached for his hand, and to her relief, he didn't pull away. "Darius, whatever they did, it doesn't change who you are to me." He laughed bitterly. "I don't know who I am anymore, Amara. I've spent years killing, taking on any job that keeps me moving, so I don't have to think about it." Amara held his gaze, unwilling to let him slip away. "Then come back with me. Leave this behind." But his expression darkened. "It's not that simple. I'm a marked man. There are people, powerful people, who want me dead, and now that you're here, they'll want you dead too." A shiver ran through her as the gravity of his words sank in, but she stood firm. "Then we'll face them together." Just as she finished speaking, a low, ominous hum filled the room. Darius's expression shifted, a predator's awareness sparking in his eyes. "We're not alone." He grabbed her by the arm, guiding her through a maze of passageways until they reached a hidden alcove, where they watched through a small crack as a team of armed mercenaries moved through the station. Each bore the mark of one of the most feared syndicates in the galaxy, the Syndicate of the Red Sun. "They've been tracking me for years," Darius whispered, "but I didn't think they'd find me here." Amara's heart pounded as they watched the mercenaries scour the station. She could see the regret in Darius's eyes, the self-recrimination. "They'll come after you too," he said, voice strained. "I never should have let you follow me here." But she met his gaze with fierce determination. "I've already lost you once. I won't lose you again." As they evaded the mercenaries, Darius guided her to a hidden shuttle, an old fighter he'd managed to retrofit with barely functioning cloaking tech. He didn't have to tell her twice to climb in, and they bolted from the asteroid, barely evading the enemy's laser fire. Now fugitives together, they planned their next move. They had to disappear, to outrun the syndicate and find somewhere safe to regroup. But Amara had a different idea. "Darius," she said as they navigated into the shadow of a nearby planet, "what if we didn't run? What if we stopped them, here and now?" He looked at her, surprise etched across his face. "Do you know what you're asking for? These people won't stop until we're both dead." "Then let's make it a fight they'll never forget." In the following days, they worked tirelessly, modifying their ship, gathering intel, and preparing for a final confrontation. Amara tapped into the contacts she'd once used to search for him, calling in favors from brokers and mercenaries willing to challenge the syndicate. Slowly, they amassed a small, makeshift force. Finally, they set a trap, luring the syndicate's fleet to the abandoned mining colony where Darius had once been lost. As the enemy ships closed in, Amara's heart thundered. She watched as Darius steeled himself, his familiar resolve coming alive once more. "Remember, Amara," he said, giving her a look she'd never forgotten. "If we get separated, don't come back for me." But she only smiled, gripping his hand tightly. Not a chance. The ensuing battle was chaos, a whirl of lasers, explosions, and the relentless surge of survival instincts. Darius led the charge, fighting with a deadly precision that defied his past trauma, and for the first time in years, Amara saw the man she had fallen in love with, fierce and determined. Together, they dismantled the syndicate's forces, taking out ship after ship until only silence remained. As they limped back to safety, their ship barely holding together, Darius looked at her, the familiar warmth returning to his eyes. "I don't know if I can ever be the man I once was," he said, his voice softer than a whisper. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. "Then let's build something new, together." And as they sailed through the stars, a sense of peace finally settled over them. A promise that no matter where they went, they'd face whatever came next side by side.